Hello and welcome back to Fallout 76. Today we're going to rank the level 20 starts from worst to best. The rankings will be based on how usable the build will be for a starting player fresh out of the vault. And for the rankings, we take into account not only the perk loadout, but also the starting weapons. Now, when you first leave the vault, you are presented with this screen. You have the option to play either as a fresh dweller, which means as soon as you leave the vault, you'll level up, you'll be level 2, and you'll get to pick one perk. Or if you want to just get right to it, you have this battle-ready dweller, which I always have trouble saying. It's quite the mouthful, but it is listed as best choice. I've always taken an issue with that. I don't necessarily think you should be pushed in one direction or the other, but that is what it is. If you choose battle-ready dweller, you are giving 5 options. So we have the commando, the slugger, the gunslinger, the shotgunner, and the specialist. And underneath each one, it actually shows what the weapon will be. You know, commando is automatic rifles, slugger is two-handed melee, gunslinger is pistols, shotguns, obviously, and specialist is VATS, which doesn't really tell you what weapons you're going to be using. And there's also a description at the bottom of each one. So commando uses automatic weapons to engage enemies from a distance. Slugger bashes enemies to bits with slow but powerful melee weapons. Gunslinger fights with slow firing weapons that pack a mean punch. Shotgunner deals large bursts of damage deals large bursts of damage from close range. And the specialist targets enemy limbs with the luck-based VAT system. So if we just look at one of these, this is the commando. I'm not into the rankings yet, but before I get to the rankings, one thing I want to talk about that I think is a deficiency for all of the builds. So rather than talk about each one individually, I'm just going to talk about this specific one. And that is under intelligence. I think if you have either the ranged weapons or if it's melee. So for the ranged weapons, I think they should have put gunsmith here. And for the melee one, they should have put makeshift warrior. And the reasons for that, number one, it'll keep your weapons from degrading as fast, as quickly as they do. And when you're fresh out of the vault, you are limited with resources and you don't really want to spend them repairing your weapons very quickly. So I think for that reason alone, that's a good one. But the main reason is modding your weapons. You are given the plan for your main weapon when you leave the vault. So you can craft more of them if you want to craft them and scrap them to learn mods. But without either makeshift warrior or gunsmith, you won't be able to apply a lot of the mods that you want to be using. And to have to level up to spend your first, even if you know about this and if you're brand new, you may not even know, but even if you know about it, you're still going to have to spend your first few level ups taking those perks if you want to mod your weapons. And so I think that first aid, because I don't really think that's super necessary, they give you a ton of stim packs, plus stim packs are pretty plentiful. So I think gunsmith or makeshift warrior would have been a better option for intelligence. And that's true across all of the builds. With that out of the way, let us start with number 5. I'm going to rank these from worst to best. There's 5 of them, so number 5 is the worst one, and that is going to be specialist. So let's select this one and have a look at it. So this is the loadout for specialist, and it says it's for VATS, right? I mean, that's what it says. You're going to target things in VATS, and I think generally this build feels fairly directionless. I'm not going to pick it apart completely because none of these are really super optimized, which, by the way, I actually think is a good thing. When they first introduced the level 20 starts, I've always been in favor of them. I think giving players more choice is a good option, and if another player starts at level 20, it has no effect on me at all, so have at it. But my issue was always that they were just kind of bad loadouts, and I'm actually kind of glad. I don't want them to be bad, but I do think that they shouldn't be optimized either, because if you think of who these are targeted at, these are targeted at people that don't want to do the grind from level 2 to level 20. They just want to get right to it. And so they want quick progress. They want instant gratification. And if you have a fully optimized build, that means every time you level up or improve the character, it's going to be very incremental and progress is going to be very slow. Whereas if you had, say, a mediocre build, which this is not even mediocre, but if you had a mediocre build, then you'd have something that would be usable, but your progress would actually feel a lot bigger as you went along. So I think having a good build is the right choice. So let's look at this first one, which I think is actually pretty terrible. So first we have crack shot. Pistols do 20% more range when basically it's for aiming down sights. Now this says it's a VATS build. This is not a VATS perk. So why would you have this in a VATS build? You shouldn't have this. So this isn't a good perk. Awareness, this is another one. You can view target specific damage resistances in VATS. Let's actually target an enemy and I'll talk about why I think this is a bad perk to choose. Fortunately, I'm not very sneaky, but we'll see if I can stay in caution. Okay, so if you see underneath where it says weak feral ghoul, that is the information from awareness. And it shows their ballistic resistance, energy resistance, radiation, fire, frost, and poison resistance. So one of the problems with this, if I'm a brand new player, I'm level 20, I don't know what these, I mean, I may know what these numbers mean. I may not know what these numbers mean. But even if I know what they mean, I still have no context. I don't know if 16 damage resistance is a lot, if it's a little bit. I just don't know. Another problem with this is even if I know all of the information that, if I know what it means, if I know how relevant it is, what am I going to do with it? I've got a 10 millimeter pistol and I've got a combat rifle as the other weapon. I can't target them. Oh, they're weak to fire. I'm going to use a fire weapon. I don't have that. So I don't really have options to deal with them in any other way. So this information really isn't, oh, it dropped out of VATS. Interesting. This information isn't, I can't really do anything with it. One way that this could be useful is if I were to target limbs. That's not how you target limbs. So if I went to, say, the head and go, maybe it would tell me the weak spot. It's not doing that. It just, it gives me their total number. So it doesn't tell me what the weak spots are either. So this is not really a perk that's going to do me any good at all. I get that it's a VATS perk, but it's not a useful VATS perk. So to me, this is just a pointless perk. Another issue with it is it's actually a 2-point perk. So this is taking up 2 points that you could put into something else. Psychopath, that's another one that I think is kind of not the best choice. We're level 20. We're not really looking for critical hit so much. I think a better option would have been to take those 3 points of luck, remove Psychopath, and put him into agility. It is VATS based. You want to have as much AP as possible. So give us 3 more points of agility. Maybe give me rank 3 of sneak, something like that, because that is available at level 20. So I think that would be a good option as well. Now, as far as our starting weapons go, obviously this is the one that's meant to be our main weapon, and that is a 10 millimeter pistol. It is modified. It has a quick magazine for faster reloads. It has aligned mods, so it can reduce the AP cost a bit, and a reflex sight as well for aiming. So, and a hair trigger receiver, I guess that's for faster fire rate. So this is obviously designed to be our main weapon. And the other option we have is a combat rifle with absolutely no mods on it at all. It is just, which is why obviously it's supposed to be a secondary weapon. It is just standard across the board. It does a little more damage. Well, actually, no, it does 28. Yeah, and I think we do 20 with the 10 mil. So it does a little bit more damage, but it's basically the same type of weapon. We pull the trigger a lot quicker, but the AP cost is really high. So for a VATS person, a fast fire rate and 25 AP cost is a bad combination. So you're probably not going to use this one a whole lot. So what I think actually would have been a better option for this would have been a hunting rifle. It's going to have a much slower fire rate, but a lot higher damage. And that would be a good contrast with the 10 millimeter pistol. So instead of awareness, we could take that off and put in a rank of rifleman, a rank of expert rifleman, and then we have a viable option between our two guns, and they serve very different purposes. So I think that would have been a better option. One more thing that they all have in common, all the builds, is under Charisma, they have Lone Wanderer rank 4. And if you don't want to play by yourself, if you want to play on a team, you also get these 2 perks. You get Inspirational and Bodyguards. I'm not going to take much issue with that. I don't generally like things like bodyguards. I don't think extra resistance on with perks is necessarily the best way to go. However, when you are leveling up, there are dead spots along the way where the perks you want just aren't available yet. So having a filler perk for bodyguards is fine. I think that'll get you through. Now, as far as the gear goes, before I get to the number 4 one, the gear is the same for all of them. They all start with a set of leather armor, level 20. It's unmodded, so that's what all of them start with. Food is the same, aid is the same, other than a bobblehead. They each have like kind of their unique bobblehead that they can use. So, but they all do start with a bobblehead, but they start with the same amount of chems. Oh, and as far as the plans go, I forget about that. The plans, they all start with the Vault Survival Backpack, and you get the plan for your main weapon. So the main weapon on this is the 10 mil pistol, and so we do have the plan for that. That'll save you a few hundred caps. You won't have to buy it yourself. And you also start with just kind of a miscellaneous amount of scrap along with a Vault-Tec supply package. And we have a fair bit of ammo for our 10 mil pistol, which is 512. And that's another way to know that the combat rifle is meant as a secondary weapon. You have a lot less 45 ammo. Still a decent amount, though. Oh, and one more thing. So when you do pick the level, like if you were to level up from level 2 to level 20, you would get a total of 6 perk packs that time. And if you start at level 20, you do not miss out on those perk packs. You get them right here. You can see if I open the perk packs down below, I'll have 6 available to open. So you will get all the perk packs. You don't miss out on any of that. I did not evaluate the build based on what you might get out of the perk packs. It's possible you could get all the perks you want and respec this character to make it a lot better. But since that is very random, I'm not going to base a ranking off what may happen. But overall on this build, when I tried it out, it was just a struggle. It just felt very directionless. And yeah, I didn't like it at all. It was very much a struggle. And I think if a brand new player tries this out, they're mostly just going to be very frustrated with it. Coming in at number 4, and this one surprised me a little bit, but it is Commando. So let's pick this one and have a look at it. This is the Commando loadout. I don't have major issues with it. My big issue with just the Commando build in general is that it felt really weak. So you do have rank 3 of Commando, you have rank 3 of Ground Pounder, you have 1 rank of Concentrated Fire. What I probably would have done with the Ground Pounder is I either would have reduced it in rank or removed it completely and added in Expert Commando. Another thing I probably would have done here is, I don't love Evasive. For an early filler perk, it's fine, but it's not something I want to have long term. I think I'd rather have Action Boy maxed out here than Evasive maxed out though, just because you do fast firing weapon when your agility is only 4, it eats up your AP really quickly. So having come back at a better rate would have been a little bit more helpful. So the starting weapons you have are a tactical automatic combat rifle and a short hunting rifle. Hunting rifle is unmodded, and you also have no rifleman perks for it. And you are picking this to use automatics, so it's one of those things that when I was playing this, I kind of forgot I even had the hunting rifle just because it's not all that intuitive when you're going for automatic weapons to pull out your hunting rifle. So you can see the combat rifle is modified with a automatic 38 receiver, an aligned short barrel, forceful stock, quick magazine, reflex sight. So the AP is only 5, which is actually pretty good, but you still chew through it pretty quickly because you're just not doing a lot of damage. And so you're having to hit the enemies a lot of times if you're using VATS. If you're not using VATS, obviously that's not an issue. But you can see the damage is 27. So one of the things I wish they would have done with this one, at first I thought, oh, automatic receiver, I've used those before. But that's on a maxed out character using critical hits and stuff, then a 38 receiver's fine. But when you're a low level character, if they put the powerful automatic on here, the damage goes from 27 to 37. So that's a big jump. That's an extra 10 point. That's an extra 37% damage. So, and that would definitely be noticeable. So I think, yeah, the 38 receiver was the wrong choice on this. At first I thought the aligned short barrel was a bad choice because I want more range. However, if you want to fire outside of VATS, this aligned short barrel is actually really stable. Combat rifle tends to be kind of jumpy when you're trying to manually aim. I don't care for it so much. But with a short barrel, it's actually very steady. For example, so I'm just shooting. it's a little bouncy, but it's very manageable. It's not jumpy like it would be if it had the aligned long barrel on it. And they use a quick magazine and that gives you 30% faster reloads. I actually would have used a Swift magazine on this. It's only 15% faster, but it gives you extra 5 ammo capacity. And that actually makes a big difference. When you're not doing a lot of damage, so you're having to go through a lot of ammo, having extra magazine capacity is very beneficial. And the biggest thing with this though, I just wasn't doing a lot of damage. And I was going through ammo. They start you off with quite a bit. Yeah, you start off with 489 rounds, which seems like a lot until you start shooting. And I honestly, when I was using this or testing this out, I was constantly looking at how much ammo I had left. I just was going through it so quickly and I was shooting enemies. It just felt like forever. And so I never really felt comfortable or confident with this build. And if you also think about the target audience, again, it's someone who wants to skip the early grind and they want to get right to it and start fighting. I don't think that same person, that same audience is someone who wants to start grinding for ammo right away. And I think the way that if you start off with an automatic with this build, that's what's going to happen. So I think one change you could make, I don't know. Commando's just kind of weak. That's part of the issue is Commando is just kind of weak early on. Is I would have put the powerful automatic on this, so you're using 45 rounds instead. And then the secondary weapon, I probably would have done an automatic pipe rifle with 38 rounds. And that way, at least you have 2 different ammo types you're going with, even though that does less damage. For some enemies, less damage is actually okay. So I think having 2 different automatic weapons using different types of ammo would have been a lot friendlier to that new person who wants to play Commando but doesn't want to start off doing an ammo grind right away. And this is one, I think this build probably more than any of the other ones is going to feel the hurt from not having Gunsmith under intelligence rather than first aid. And just because you are going to be able to, you want to mod that weapon to do as much damage as you possibly can and not being able to really do any mods. Maybe I want to put a suppressor on it. I think a suppressor takes, you don't know it right out of the gate, but you do know the combat rifle plan. That is the plan on this one, the combat rifle. So you can craft them and scrap them for mods, but you're not going to put a suppressor. I think that takes rank 2 of Gunsmith. So it's going to take a bit before you can actually put decent mods on your weapon. So for me, this is the loadout that suffers the most from not having Gunsmith. And at number 3, we have Shotgunner. So when I first had the idea for this video, I kind of thought the Shotgunner would probably be number 1. And yeah, obviously it wasn't. So let's look at what the build is. So we have maxed out shotgunner. We've got scatter shot, which is a great perk. I mean, reduced weight is fine, but the reload of 30% faster is very good, especially because you start off with the pump action shotgun, which loads 1 round at a time. So having a 30% faster reload is very nice. And skeet shooter, which just gives you excellent or improved accuracy. I don't have huge issues with the build. One thing I would change though, and actually this is part of the reason why it's number 3, is the Scrounger perk. Not because I have an issue with Scrounger in general, but with shotguns, if you loot your enemies, even if you loot every 3rd enemy, you're gonna have so much more ammo than you start with. You'll just constantly gain shotgun shells. So you don't need extra, ever. So I would take that 1 point of luck, remove Scrounger, and move it over to Perception and do concentrated fire. That was the big issue with me with this build, was it is designed for close-up combat. And when you're fighting enemies and you target them in VATS and you can only shoot center mass, you can't shoot heads or legs to cripple them, that is incredibly frustrating. So frustrating. Just so frustrating. You end up taking a lot longer to kill stuff, number 1, because you don't get to target the weak spots. You have to just shoot center mass all the time. And yeah, that for me was... It doesn't make it necessarily bad in terms of like it wasn't enough to push it to last place, but it probably kept it from being second or maybe even first place, because I really thought this would be a better option. But having concentrated fire, you know, not included as part of the build was incredibly frustrating. Now you can manual aim if you're one of those people, but with a pump action shotgun, it's not really the best for that. It's got a lot of movement, a lot of recoil with it. So manual aiming with it is a lot more work than if you had, say, a combat shotgun. So it really does lend itself to VATS pretty well. And to me, that's just why you need concentrated fire. So that was a big issue I had with it. The damage was okay. I mean, honestly, with this one, I still wouldn't recommend against it. Obviously, when you level up, you could pick concentrated fire on your first level up. You have 6 perk card packs. There's a chance you'll get it from that. I felt pretty good. I mean, I was able to kill stuff relatively easily. You never worry about ammo with this build. I mean, shotgun shells are forever. So I'm never looking at how much ammo I have unless my weight starts to creep up because I have too much of it. But other than that, yeah, ammo is not an issue at all. And I'm able to kill stuff reasonably quickly. Not as quick as I would like because I can't target specific limbs in VATS. But overall, I felt okay. I mean, this was probably the first build that I would feel okay recommending to someone. If they want to play shotguns, I'd say, sure, go ahead and start this way. A nice thing is you do get the pump action shotgun plan, which is kind of a rare drop outside of this. If you do this, you get it every time. But other than that, it can be kind of a rare drop to find. So that's kind of a nice little benefit. So this is the weapon you start with. It is modded a little bit. It's modded for medium. So your range is not going to be, it's not suppressed. So 96 range is okay. So it's not heavily modified. This is another one though, where your missing gunsmith is going to be noticeable because, you know, at some point, this is only a level 15 weapon. That's how they rank up, 15. So the next would be 25. So say you get to level 25, you want to craft a new weapon. You could craft, I think you can craft the gun without gunsmith, but most of the mods you're going to want are going to be locked away. So this is another one. I mean, it's kind of across all of them. You're just going to feel not having gunsmith available to you. The secondary weapon is kind of curious. It's a 10mm pistol. We have no buffs at all. We have nothing that's going to increase the damage of this. And I don't know. I just don't see switching from a shotgun to a 10mm pistol. If I want to play with shotguns, then why do I have this pistol? I think, honestly, a better choice for this would have been a double barrel. Double barrels also are at level 15. So give us a double barrel shotgun as part of the start. It's really, I mean, even though it has the same ammo type, it's very much a different feel than a shotgun. I mean, or a pump action shotgun rather. So it does a lot more damage. That's pretty nice. It only holds 2 shots. Reloads are pretty quick, but I just think having a different type of shotgun available would have been kind of a fun way to do this rather than saying, here's this 10mm pistol that you're probably never going to use. But overall, I think this build is just kind of okay. That's kind of how I felt about it. I'm like, oh, this is okay. It's not really the worst and it's not the best, but it's definitely, I think from here on, this is the start of the ones that are actually, I would consider usable builds. At number 2, we have Gunslinger. So with Gunslinger, I was actually surprised at how much I liked this build. And it definitely seems to hold, I think at least the idea of the perk cards, it conveys a pretty good message. I think they definitely had a vision for this one, and just look at the perks. Crack shot, so that gives more accuracy or more range and accuracy when aiming down sights. We have concentrated fire, so here we have out of VATS, in VATS. We want to be very flexible. We have modern renegade, which is excellent or it adds hip fire accuracy and chance to cripple a limb. So we have kind of everything that we could want with pistols. One thing I want to say, not necessarily about the build, but about the card, Modern Renegade, I didn't notice any hipfire accuracy gain at all. It didn't seem I had to have stuff right on the crosshair, so maybe it makes the crosshair smaller. I didn't test that, but it just, to me, I didn't feel like I had any extra hipfire accuracy at all. The cripple a limb, though, even though it's a small chance, I did notice that quite often. There'd be a super mutant that would start limping or stop shooting at me because I injured its arm. The funniest when you'd have a melee character or a melee enemy that would start holding their arm. They would still come at you like they were going to attack, but then they would just hold their arm. So that was actually sort of useful. I wouldn't necessarily use this perk, but it was kind of fun. It's not a perk I'd used before. But overall, this build, or this one actually felt pretty good when I was using it. Now, you don't need Scrounger. You're using the Western Revolver, that is your main weapon. You get so much 44 ammo back that you don't want extra. You don't even want what you have. So this isn't a perk. I'd probably take this off and probably move the point over to agility and do expert gunslinger, maybe do a little bit of extra damage there. So here's what you start off with is the Western Revolver. It has a severe receiver, which I think is extra critical damage, if I remember correctly, which isn't a big deal. You're not going to be doing a lot of critical hits at this level. Long barrel, aligned grip, standard sights. I do wish they would have put a reflex sight on it. The standard sight is, I mean, it's okay. It's better than what you get on a 10mm submachine gun. You can aim down it, but a reflex sight would have been nice. I wish that would have been the thing they put on it, but that's fine. But you can see the damage is pretty good. 82, it's obviously a slow fire rate, but in terms of single shots, this is actually very strong, and I felt very comfortable with this. I felt like I could walk anywhere that you would go as an early level, and you wouldn't struggle at all. I killed enemies very quickly, whether it was in VATS or just manually aiming. This was a sufficiently strong build. Sufficiently strong weapon, I should say. And then we have the 10mm pistol. This one is unmodded, as all of the secondary weapons are. So I don't know that I would use this. I mean, you might use it. I obviously didn't spend tons of time playing all of these. I did play each one for at least a half an hour, though. So, I mean, I did spend quite a bit of time. I did events with them, and some of them I spent a lot more time with, but this one was actually pretty good. I really like this one, and this is one I'd recommend this. If someone said, hey, I like pistols, what do you think of starting at level 20 Gunslinger? I'd say go for it. It's a very solid option. And like all the other ones, you start off with the plan. Now, it just says Revolver, but that is the Western Revolver. That is just the name of the Western Revolver plan. It's just Revolver. So you do, just like all of the other ones, you start off with the plan for your main gun. At number 1, we have Slugger, and that actually ended up being a pretty easy pick. Here we have the Slugger loadout. And so we have rank 3 of Slugger. We've got Martial Artist at rank 3, which is great because that gives you faster swing speed, and we do have a slow weapon. The baseball bat is the main one on this, which is a two-handed weapon that is slow. Evasive, again, that's another one that I don't necessarily want to use that long term, but actually it kind of fits with this one, at least in the short term. 3 extra resistance isn't a ton. I mean, it's +3 for every point of agility, so that's an extra 12 energy and damage resistance, which an extra 12 can actually be pretty significant, and you'll be up close and personal with enemies. You'll be getting hit a lot, so this is okay. I don't love it, but it's fine. Probably the only change I would make to this, if I was just going to tweak it, make a minor tweak, I'd get rid of Can Do. Number 1, when you leave the vault, you don't have to eat for 2 hours. No eating or drinking. You don't need to worry about it. So you don't have any immediate need for food. But even if you did, food is so plentiful. Plus, they start you off with food as well. So you don't need help finding extra canned food. Plus, as a melee character, you really want food that gives you extra strength and extra melee damage. Canned food doesn't do that. What I would rather do is take that 1 point of luck, get rid of Can Do, and just add it to strength. Do 10 strength and give me Expert Slugger rank 1. So an extra 5 or an extra 1 strength, that'll give me an extra 5 carry weight. It'll do extra melee damage, plus having that perk will give me more melee damage. So that would be about the only change, like the obvious one that I would do for this. As far as the weapons go, the main weapon is the baseball bat, and they've modded it with Sharp, which gives you bleed damage, which I really like. You can see that 13 bleed damage over 5 seconds. So this has pretty good one-hitness, and especially in the forest, or just anywhere that you encounter enemies that are your level at level 20, if you mostly finish them off, usually the bleed damage will do the rest of the work. So it actually is meaningful on those lower level enemies that you'll encounter. So that was really good. Another nice thing about starting out as a melee character versus all these other ones, you don't have to have an ammo grind. That is one of the things. If you're looking to start level 20, you're probably looking to avoid a lot of the grind. So not having to worry about ammo is a big plus for a build like this. So I think it's really good. You're definitely strong enough. I felt the most comfortable out of all of these, just kind of going anywhere And I joined a few events playing this way. Some of them were tougher events, like Safe and Sound, which is in the Savage Divide. Some of those enemies can be pretty tough, but I was able to hold my own and do some decent damage. The one thing you are missing here, which isn't available until rank 21, so it's not like it can be included anyway, but blocker. You do notice that a lot when you're up close and personal with enemies because you just don't, you're not mitigating that damage like you would with blocker. So that's, once I start leveling on a character like this, once I hit 21, that's where my perks are going, is into blocker. I do think, now here's one thing I would change for sure, is the secondary weapon. I think it's a very strange choice. So we have a golf club. It's not modded, but none of the secondary weapons are modded. It's also a two-handed weapon, and it's also slow. So it does the same thing as the baseball bat, but it just does less damage. The baseball bat was 77 with bleed damage, and this is only 51. So I don't know, I can't come up with any reason you would ever use this other than maybe your baseball bat breaks, but you have the plan for it, so you could just craft another one. So yeah, I don't see any reason for this. It would make sense to do something different. What I think is a better choice would be to do a combat knife. That way you have a weapon, and obviously it does a lot less damage, but it has a fast attack speed. So maybe you're in a group of lower level enemies, weaker enemies, take out your combat knife and finish them off really quickly instead of the slow, swing that you would have with the baseball bat. But yeah, golf club, kind of an odd choice. Doesn't really make a lot of sense. But if you want to start a level 20 start and your question is which one would be the strongest one to start with, Slugger would be my pick. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit one of the buttons, and I hope you'll join me in the next one. Thank you very much.